Good day, Mzansi, and welcome back to another episode breakdown of Kwababa, the Mzansi magic telenovela that has had all of us glued to our screens since it premiered. If you have been following this story from the beginning, you already know that nothing in the Makai's household is ever simple, and today's episode proves once again that peace in this family is always temporary. Grab your tea, get comfortable, because we are unpacking everything that went down, and trust me, there is a lot to talk about. We open with Zwelakhe, the man of the moment, standing at a crossroads that would break a lesser man. On one side, he has the woman he loves, Bahumi Motanang, waiting for him to finally make things official. On the other side, there is a storm brewing at home that threatens to swallow everything he has built. What makes this episode so powerful is that despite everything hanging over his head, Zwelakhe makes the decision that many of us were not expecting so soon. He decides that the Lobola negotiations will proceed. Not later, not once the dust settles, but now, while the ground beneath him is still shaking. Let's talk about why this decision matters so much. For weeks, we have watched Zwelakhe carry the weight of his late father's name like a crown that is slowly turning into a burden. He has always believed that being the firstborn son of the Makai's household means he owes it to his father's memory to hold the family together, to build the empire his father dreamed of, and to marry with dignity and tradition. But this episode forces him to ask a much harder question. What does it mean to carry a father's name when the truth about that name is no longer certain? Rather than letting that question paralyze him, Zwelakhe chooses to walk forward. He chooses Bahumi. He chooses love, tradition, and his own future, even while the rest of his world is uncertain. Of course, nothing involving Mombokosi is ever as calm as it looks on the surface. Slendile, known to most of us simply as Mombokosi, has spent years positioning herself as the moral center of this family. She leads the women at church, she prays over every decision, and she has convinced half of Msawawa that she is beyond reproach. But we all know by now that Mombokosi's past is far messier than her present image suggests. In this episode, we see her walking a tightrope between supporting her son's Lobola and desperately trying to keep old secrets buried before they crawl their way to the surface during the very negotiations he is supposed to be celebrating. This is where the tension of the episode really builds. Because while Zwelakhe is preparing his heart and his household for one of the most important days of his life, there are people around him who know things he does not. Dumisani, ever the opportunist, has been circling this family for a long time now, and he understands better than anyone that information is power. He has been quietly gathering pieces of the puzzle regarding Zwelakhe's parentage, and in this episode we start to see just how close he is to using that information as a weapon. Whether his motive is business, revenge, or something more personal, one thing is clear: Dumisani does not want to see Zwelakhe walk away from this Lobola with his dignity fully intact. Meanwhile, Mlobo continues to be one of the most fascinating characters to watch this season. He has always struck viewers as someone who is easily pulled in different directions, someone who wants to do right but keeps finding himself entangled in other people's schemes. In this episode, we see him caught between loyalty to his brother and the pressure being applied by outside forces who want to use him as a pawn. There have been moments this season where audiences questioned whether Mlobo is truly as easily manipulated as the storyline suggests, and this episode gives us a bit more insight into that debate. He is shown pushing back, at least in small ways, against being used so blatantly, which suggests the writers may be building him toward a redemption arc rather than keeping him as a simple pawn for the rest of the season. Now let's get into the heart of the family drama, because this is where things get emotional. The question of who Zwelakhe's biological father truly is has been simmering under the surface for a while now, and this episode brings it dangerously close to boiling over. Mombokosi is confronted, gently but firmly, by family members who want answers. They remind her that hiding the truth does not protect anyone, it only delays the pain and multiplies it. There is a particularly moving scene where an elder in the family essentially tells her that a woman of her standing, someone so respected in the community, should not be the one hiding her own child from the truth of his identity. It is a powerful moment because it strips away the performance of respectability and forces Mambokosi to sit with the reality of what she has done. For those who have been speculating online, this episode does not hand us a full confession, but it moves us closer. We are shown just enough to understand that Zwelakhe's father is not necessarily the man everyone in Mzwawa assumes him to be. There are hints connecting his true parentage to a man from a completely different family line, someone with no blood ties to the Makai's name at all. If that turns out to be true, it would explain a lot about why certain relationships within the family have always felt strained, particularly the tension between Zwelakhe and Kwab, who has never quite hidden his resentment. Fans have long theorized that this friction is not just personality clashing, but something rooted much deeper, possibly tied to old jealousy or old history between Kwab and Mambokosi herself. Speaking of Kwab, this episode gives him a moment to shine in his own storyline. After a long stretch of struggling to find his footing, we see him finally getting some traction. His wife has helped him secure a new job, and for the first time in a while, he seems to be building something stable outside of the family business. But old habits die hard, and Kwab still insists that his rightful place is back at the company. He holds firmly to the belief that he is the true Inkosana of the family and that everything the Makai's name has built should eventually fall under his leadership. This sets up an interesting parallel storyline running alongside the paternity drama. If it turns out that Zwelakhe is not blood related to the Makai's line after all, Kwab's claims to leadership suddenly carry a lot more weight, and that possibility alone is enough to keep viewers speculating about where this is all heading. Back to Zwelakhe, though, because this episode really is about his resolve. Despite everything swirling around him, he refuses to let the uncertainty define his wedding plans. There is a beautiful scene between him and Bahumi where she reassures him that no matter what comes out about his past, her love for him is not conditional on a surname or a bloodline. It is one of the more tender moments of the season, and it grounds the episode emotionally before the drama picks back up. Bahumi has grown so much as a character, from a hopeful young woman navigating a complicated new family to someone who now stands firmly by her partner's side, even when things get messy. Her parents also play their part here, pleading with their own relatives to show patience and grace toward the Makai's delegation as the negotiations approach, understanding that a lot is at stake for everyone involved. Nlanhla and Mxolisi also get some screen time in this episode, and both of their arcs continue to add depth to the family dynamic. Nlanhla, always the loyal cousin and confidant to Zwelakhe, finds himself once again trying to keep the peace between warring family members, even as his own father continues to sow division wherever he can. Mxolisi, on the other hand, is dealing with his own marital pressure, trying to balance keeping Kathiwi happy while also standing his ground on issues that matter to him. There is a small but telling moment where Mxolisi tells someone close to him that he refuses to let outside pressure dictate the direction of his marriage, a sentiment that feels like it is setting up a bigger confrontation down the line, possibly with Mokumalo, who has not exactly endeared herself to the rest of the family with her tendency to gossip and stir up trouble. Now, let's talk about the actual Lobola proceedings, because this is the emotional core of the episode's title. Despite everyone around him whispering about secrets, despite the shadow of Dumisani's scheming, and despite his own mother's unresolved past, Zwelakhe stands tall and gives the go-ahead for the negotiations to move forward. It is a defining moment for his character. For a man who has spent this entire season trying to live up to his father's legacy, choosing to move forward with his own future, on his own terms, feels like a quiet act of rebellion against everything trying to hold him back. He is essentially saying that whatever the truth turns out to be about his biological father, it will not stop him from building his own family with the woman he loves. There is a wonderful sense of communal energy in this part of the episode too. Family members who have been at odds all season come together, at least temporarily, to support the occasion. Even characters who clearly have their own agendas, like Dumisani, are forced to play along in public, smiling through gritted teeth while privately continuing to plot. This contrast between public celebration and private tension is something Kwababa has done incredibly well all season, and this episode is a great example of that balance. Of course, no Lobola scene in this show would be complete without a little bit of drama sneaking its way in. There are hints dropped throughout the episode that this celebration will not go entirely smoothly. Whether it is a slip of the tongue from someone who knows too much, or a well-timed interruption from someone with bad intentions, the writers are clearly setting up future episodes where the truth about Zwelakhe's parentage becomes impossible to ignore. Viewers who are paying close attention will notice several small clues scattered throughout, references to a DNA test that has been quietly discussed among certain family members, and pointed comments from elders who seem to know more than they are letting on. Let's also touch on the spiritual and cultural elements woven into this episode, because Kwababa has always done a wonderful job of grounding its drama in real tradition. There are scenes involving a Sangoma who continues to give cryptic messages about ancestors searching for someone who does not belong to the family they think they belong to. This spiritual thread has been running through the background of the season, and it adds a layer of tension that goes beyond the usual family drama. If Zwelakhe truly is not connected to the Makai's ancestral line, it raises fascinating questions about identity, belonging, and what it truly means to be part of a family, questions that go far beyond paperwork or surnames. As the episode moves toward its conclusion, we see Momokosi given something of a deadline by the family, an unspoken understanding that she cannot keep hiding the truth forever. The pressure on her is mounting from multiple directions at once, from her own children who want honesty, from Dumasani who wants leverage, and from her own conscience, which seems to be wearing thin after years of carrying this secret alone. It is genuinely compelling character work, because rather than painting her as simply villainous, the show continues to give us glimpses of a woman trapped by decisions she made long ago, someone who convinced herself that silence was protection when really it was only postponement. By the time the credits roll, viewers are left with a mixture of hope and dread. Hope, because Zwelakhe and Bahumi's love story continues to move forward despite the odds. Dread, because we all know that the truth about his parentage is coming, and when it arrives, it is going to shake the very foundation of the Makai's family. The Lobola negotiations may have received the green light, but the emotional negotiations happening beneath the surface are far from settled. If you ask me, this episode does an excellent job of balancing celebration with tension. It gives long-time fans a satisfying step forward in the Zwelakhe and Bahumi romance while continuing to plant seeds for what promises to be one of the biggest reveals of the season. The performances continue to impress, particularly from the actors playing Zwelakhe and Momokosi, who managed to convey so much internal conflict without ever needing to say it outright. Looking ahead, all signs point toward a dramatic confrontation once the paternity truth finally comes out. Will Zwelakhe still consider himself a Makai's once the DNA results are undeniable? Will Kwab use this revelation to stake his own claim to the family business and legacy? And perhaps most importantly, will Bahumi's love be enough to hold Zwelakhe together once his entire sense of identity is thrown into question? Those are the questions we will be watching closely as the season continues. That is where we will leave things for today's breakdown. As always, this has been a personal take and speculation based on where the story currently stands, not an official confirmation from the show's producers, so take some of these theories with a pinch of salt until we see them play out on screen. Let me know in the comments what you think is really going on with Zwelakhe's parentage, and whether you believe the Lobola will make it through the season without falling apart completely. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Kwababa breakdowns, and I will see you in the next one.